What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Dan Becker here. So today we've got a ton of brand new gear we're going to show you, and I'm actually with a bunch of brand new hikers on this trip. Guys from my church, actually, taking them, some of them their first trip ever. I don't even know if any of them ever. Some of them have actually slept in a tent before, so this is going to be awesome. We're in Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Temps are in the 30s right now. It could be snowing tonight, so I think we should get to camp, and I'll kind of pull out some of the gear and I'll get to show you some of it. So let's go. Actually, we're back in my backyard because we meant to make a whole video on this trip. We were going to show you how great this place was and how we could use the gear out there and all that stuff, which we're still going to show you. But the problem is that it was actually so windy and so rainy that we literally could not film at all. The audio was so bad from the wind that we couldn't subject you guys to that, and we wanted to protect our cameras so we could make other videos, so they were actually put away almost the entire time, except for when Emmett could pull them out when it stopped raining. Okay, so let's get to the gear. I've got a ton of gear that I took on this trip, and all of it did actually phenomenally well, to the point where I was extremely excited to make this video because it was almost all brand new gear for me. And the first piece of gear I want to talk about is this right here. This is the Z-Packs Duplexel. Z-Packs, change the name. Nobody can say it, okay? I think it's the Z-Packs. We'll put it on the screen. Okay, look at this. This is the pack size. This is a Nalgene bottle, all right? I don't know why I'm doing that. Like that matters. But this will fit nicely inside of a backpack like this. You can put it down on the side of the inside of your backpack, or you can just strap it right to the top of the backpack, because this is made out of Dyneema, which is a waterproof material that doesn't get wet. So actually, I think we should set this up real fast, because first time I set this up, it only took me like 5 minutes. Do you think I could beat that time?
We'll see. I'll start a timer.
All right, let's do it.
Go. Two minutes and 58 seconds.
Yeah, under 3 minutes, baby. I just got to do the doors, but other than that, that's a pretty easy setup. Z-Packs Duplexel, whatever. Dyneema tent, single wall trekking pole tent. So that means it doesn't come with poles to set it up. The structure is held up by trekking poles. And this is made out of Dyneema, which is one of the strongest fabrics in the world, originally designed for sailboat sails. Totally waterproof, doesn't stretch, will still puncture though if you poke something on it, but it does take a lot of force. And it's just awesome. It does great in high weather, high winds, that kind of thing. And we had some wicked winds, right, Emmett?
Oh yeah.
Wicked winds, and this tent did phenomenal through that whole thing. Of course, I did have it sort of angled with the winds kind of coming up over it like this, but man, this thing is awesome. Two-person tent. This particular one, the XL, is for people who are 7 feet tall. So if you're a tall person watching this video and you've been commenting on my videos asking me about tall people tents, like some people do, this is the tent for you. So this is literally for people who are 7 feet tall. Granted, I'm not on a pad right now, so I would be closer to the tent. But look how much headroom I've got just still here and down by my feet. And I'll show you the actual headroom as well. So you can see I'm sitting up, I'm 6 feet 2. I can't even hit the top of the tent if I try, barely. It's got these extra little poles at the end here that you can attach at the bottom here, and then they just sort of guy out here, which gives you a lot more interior space when you're laying in there, so the tent isn't in your face. Tons of headroom in this thing. much more than you would think inside of the tent. So you can actually like change your clothes in there if you want to. So, man, this thing is such a great temp. It's a great temp. Tent, it's a great tent. Small gripes would be, let me show you. The only thing that you want to know about this tent that would be a gripe in my mind is that, and this is just a gripe for me because I'm used to a little more luxurious tents, would be that there's no zipper for the door. So you have these sort of awkward tabs here, just a little toggle, I guess, that goes through this right here, and then it just buckles like that. And then these little D-rings attach down here to this small little metal clasp looking hook thing to shut the door. And that's just a little awkward, especially if you're on the inside of the tent, you're trying to get out at night, you can't really see, it's dark, you know, you're reaching for this thing, or just to sort of re-buckle it in the rain, that kind of thing. But if weight is your thing, you're not gonna want a zipper, I guess. It didn't have a problem with wind, it didn't come apart, I didn't have to worry about it in the high winds, it held just fine. But yeah, so that would be my gripe there. And then the other gripe is, I'm not a big fan of tent doors that fall to the ground like this, because they tend to get in the mud and the rain and that kind of thing. And not the end of the world, that's just a personal preference for me. But other than that, this tent is top notch. This is one of the most popular ultralight tents on the market. You go to any website out there, they're all gonna be talking about this tent, saying it's like #1 of any tent out there. So I would have to agree, this thing is fantastic. All right, I wanted to try out a new sleeping bag. This company reached out to me like, I don't know, maybe a month ago. Cumulus is the brand. They wanted me to just sort of pick stuff off their website. It was like, hey Dan, will you try out some of our gear? I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. So I did. And I chose this Panyam 600 sleeping bag. And the 600 stands for how many grams of insulation are on the inside. So there's 1.2 pounds, I don't know how many. Well, anyway, there's actually technically 620 grams in this one because this is a long version. This is a 20-degree down bag with 850 fill. And I'm not gonna lie, this was exceptionally warm. Like, it froze that night and I was concerned that maybe I would be cold. I was not at all cold in this thing. One of my biggest gripes with sleeping bag manufacturers is that the zippers almost always get caught. But this one is amazing. Like, this is the kind of no catch zipper here that actually works and almost never gets caught when you're zipping and unzipping it, which is awesome. And then another gripe that I have with sleeping bags is that there's always like so many like cords and dangly things around the hood that drive me nuts when I'm sleeping. And this one didn't. It was actually really, really, really comfortable with this super insulated hood. That was very, very nice. And it's actually really roomy on the inside. This one, the long version, the 6'6" version, weighs just over 2 pounds, which is comparable to my Western mountaineering bag. And this thing retails at the baseline price for under $400, like 370 bucks ish, like 368 or something, where Western mountaineering is going to cost you like 600 bucks. And honestly, this is comparable to it. This is a Polish company. Highly recommend you check these guys out. Cumulus is the brand. Epic sleeping bag, total winner. This is one of those bags that, like, a lot of times I give away gear. This is not being given away. This one's staying with me for sure. One more thing I wanted to say about this sleeping bag that was really unique to other sleeping bags that I have is that the way the foot box angles out, I don't know if you can see that, but it sort of angles out and up. That was super comfortable for my feet because I didn't feel like my feet were poking the top here, which meant that they weren't getting cold. So that is a total win on a foot box. Another piece of gear from Cumulus that they just happened to send me, like, I didn't even know this was coming. Do you know what this is, Emmett?
Looks like a jacket of some sort.
A jacket. Not bad. This is a puffy jacket. Watch this. Well, it's technically not a jacket. It's like a pullover. But this thing weighs under 5 ounces. It's like almost 4.5 ounces. 900 fill down. And in order to save weight, it's just, you know, like, it buttons down halfway. It doesn't have a zipper. Buttons down just like partially down, and there's no pockets and no hood. But it's under 200 bucks. It's like $180, I think, for this thing. Something to like throw in your day pack or backpack or backpack. Of course, you're gonna put it in your backpack, but it's easy to carry around. This was something I wore along with another jacket that I'm gonna show you in a minute. not from Cumulus, but this thing, super awesome as well. So when you're...
Got those fall leaves, baby.
Fall leaves everywhere. One thing about going with brand new backpackers is that they ask very frequently, like, where we're at on trail in regards to like where camp is. So another piece of gear that I've used a ton, that I've talked about many times on this channel, but it was super helpful, that I just am going to keep talking about because you guys need to just go in the description, click on the link and buy it and use it because it's awesome, is the navigation app that I use called Onyx Backcountry. I was able to show them exactly where we were on trail and tell them how far we were from camp. And it also showed me weather that I could see on there as well. So there were even points on trail where we got to a fork in the road and I could literally point my phone in the direction of each fork and go, okay, I'm supposed to go this way, because Onyx acts like a GPS on trail, as if like you're driving in your car. That's how well it works. So it's just a great app to use. So make sure you click the link in the description below for Onyx. We ended up going to Pictured Rocks in northern Michigan. It's right on the UP, right on Lake Superior, where the cliffs are literally 100 to 200 feet high, and you are hiking directly on the edge of the cliff, to the point where, I mean, the trail looks like the edge of the cliff is one side of the trail. Sometimes you're in the woods, sometimes you're not, but a lot of the time we were actually in severe wind blowing off, so the waves were actually coming up higher than the cliffs, off into the woods. It was absolutely crazy. Some of these guys had never even backpacked before. They'd never even slept in a tent before. This was their very first trip. So to have them on their first trip and experience something like this, I told them, I'm like, hey man, it only gets better from here. Like, it couldn't possibly get any worse from a weather perspective. But every single one of those guys had great gear. Why? Because I borrowed most of it to them. I loaned most, is it borrowed or loaned? Whatever.
Loaned.
They got a lot of my gear to use on that trip, and I just was like, hey, you guys, I promise you're gonna be comfortable. I won't let you down. There was only one guy that was a little chilly because he was in a hammock and he didn't understand his insulation. So, but other than that, no complaints. Everybody had a blast. Everybody had a great time. And every single one of those guys wants to go on a trip again, which is the goal of this channel, to get some of you guys off of your laptops, staring at your phones, and actually get out into the backcountry. If these guys could do it, if these guys could go out there for the first time ever and go through that horrible of weather and want to go again, I promise you, just give it a try, give it a shot, and you'll be impressed with what you're capable of. Okay, another piece of gear that I've never used before up until this trip. I actually went online and bought it, and I couldn't believe I bought it because it was so expensive, but I did it anyway, just because I had heard about this from other people, how great it was. Is this jacket here. This is the Montbell Plasma Alpine, I think it's called, jacket. This, Emmett, might actually be better than the Ghost Whisperer as far as like best jacket.
Them's fighting words.
Yeah, it's, I'm not kidding. This is, I believe it's lighter weight. We'll put the specs on screen. 1,000 fill down, and it is way more loft and way warmer than the Ghost Whisperer. But the problem is that this jacket is like, I don't even want to say it. I'm like literally embarrassed to say how much I paid for this jacket.
Uh-oh. You can whisper it to the camera?
It's $475. Ouch. I know. $475 jacket. I'm a gear reviewer. I got to do it though, man. I do this stuff for you. I literally go, my family cannot eat for the rest of this week, so I could tell you about a red jacket, folks. Yeah, but check this thing out. You would think like with a jacket like this that there's a shortage on features. There is not. It has pockets. A lot of jackets this lightweight don't have pockets. It has draw cords to be able to cinch things down like a hood. All right, and it also has draw cord around the waist in order to cinch up so that drafts don't get underneath you. But this is the Alpine version. They have a lighter weight version than this that weighs like, I want to say it's like 5 ounces or 5.5 ounces all in, and that one doesn't have a hood. There's just a lot less features. I don't even think it has pockets on it. It's just like, why would you? Anyway, I like pockets. If I want to be warm, I want pockets, right? So there's elastic around the cuffs, and I had a lot of jealous people looking at this jacket until I told them how much it cost. Then they were like, "You're insane, Dan." But if you are a backpacker, a long distance hiker, if you care a lot about weight, or if you're just like going into the winter months and you're just like, man, I've got so much gear, I want to lighten up my load, This is a great way to potentially do that if you're willing to spend the extra cash to do it. But the only downside to this jacket is that it is a 7 denier nylon, so it will have the tendency to rip if you scrape it on branches and that. I'm getting hot. I need to take this thing off. It will have the tendency to like rip if you're, walking past branches and that kind of thing. But you know what? A down jacket's gonna rip no matter what, as much as you're gonna wear it out there. And those are just battle wounds. You know what I'm saying? It's like, those are badges of honor. This is a great jacket. This could potentially be better than the Ghost Whisperer jacket. This could possibly be my favorite jacket of all time based on the warmth to weight ratio. Are there other jackets that you can get away with that are less money? Yeah, there are. For sure, like the Decathlon Trek 100, the Trek 4 Class 100. That's an awesome jacket. That's like 90 bucks right now, 800 fill, and it only weighs like 10 ounces. So check that one out. I'll put a link in the description for that one too. This one though is much, much warmer. This one is literally like wearing 2 of the Decathlon jackets. I feel like this is a really awkward position to be in because I'm talking about shoes. I'm like losing my balance. Okay, so I normally don't talk about shoes, but I'm talking about all the gear that I use brand new for the first time on this trip. But I have been told by so many people about Brooks shoes. These are the Brooks Cascadia 16s. I've been using Ultras. I've had probably 7 pairs of Ultras. I've used Lone Peaks and Timps mainly. And what I've noticed though is that the last couple of pairs of Ultras have just not lasted very long at all. Matter of fact, the last pair blew out right on the side here, and I only had them on 4 trips. I maybe had 150 miles on them, and I used them like around town even. So that should not have happened. So I went out and bought these. The toe box doesn't look large, but it is large. And man, I hiked probably only 20 miles in these, but it was a hard 20 miles. These are the Gore-Tex version. I don't know if I mentioned that. These are the Gore-Tex version. They did get wet on the inside because if you got waterproof shoes, eventually they're gonna get wet from stepping in puddles. And like there were points where I thought it was leafy ground, but it ended up being like a foot of mud. So my foot sunk down, and I did not get blisters. I didn't even get hot spots with brand new shoes that I didn't even break them in. I like broke the cardinal rule that I wasn't supposed to break in. So I don't know, I'll report more on these as I use them, but so far these are pretty awesome. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Dan, you always say that all the gear is awesome. In this particular case, yes, all of the gear that I used that was for the first time was awesome. I was expecting something to not keep me warm or to like wet out to the point where I couldn't sleep in a tent anymore because it was leaking on me or something, and nothing failed. Now, granted, it was only the first trip, but this was one heck of a trip to put a lot of this gear through a test. A lot of times you go on a trip and it's just like perfect weather and you're like, okay, that was no big deal. Any tent could have stood up to that. But this was, Emmett, am I right?
It was something.
It was unreal, the weather on this trip. So it definitely put this stuff through a test. First time ever, but highly impressed so far. I'm gonna continue to use this gear on trail in the next several backpacking trips. So stay tuned for more reports on this stuff. Another piece of gear from Z-Packs is the Z-Packs Arc Haul Ultra, I think it is. If we get it wrong, we'll put it up on the screen. Okay, this was my first ultralight backpack. Not this one, but I used the Z-Packs, I think it was the Arc Haul, it might have been the Arc Blast, very similar backpacks. And I switched from it probably 4 years ago to, I don't remember, maybe 3-4 years ago, to the Hyperlight backpack. Z-Packs reached out to me, was like, hey, can we send you a backpack? Got this in the mail. I'm not gonna lie, this thing was super comfortable. So my problem with the old Z-Packs backpack is that it squeaked every time I would step. I would hear this like squeaking noise and it drove me insane. And so I just got rid of it. I switched it out. But using this, they've made some changes to it. So they call it an arc because the back frame here arcs. So it sort of stays off of your back. So it's got this sort of mesh panel here that keeps the backpack away from your back. So there's a lot of ventilation here. And this is the 70-liter backpack, which I'm not exactly sure how they measure their liters. It doesn't look like a 70-liter backpack, but I think it's probably because it bows out at the top, and then they're also counting this mesh in the pockets here. So maybe all in all, it's 70 liters, but this is definitely shorter than my Hyperlight pack, which is a 55-liter pack. So, but this held a ton of gear, and it was like, it might have been more comfortable than my Hyperlight pack, to be honest with you. It was pretty comfortable and didn't squeak. And the other plus that this backpack had over the Hyperlight that was super impressive is the hip belt tightens really well. Like, it tightens to the point where you could just keep tightening it. Like, the Hyperlight almost has like a stopping point on the hip belt. Like, it, once it reaches a certain point, it just doesn't seem to get any tighter. Sometimes when you need it to get tighter, it just won't. So that was really nice. And then this one also has the load lifters on it, which were really nice, which I haven't had on a backpack in a long time because Hyperlight does not have those on there. This is a Dyneema pack, super expensive. I think this thing runs around $400 for the backpack. So not for the average, you know, once a year kind of guy. This is for the guy who's going to go often and wants to go really lightweight, because this thing weighs just over 20 ounces. So almost a half a pound or more lighter weight than the Hyperlight as well. Couple downsides to this backpack: it doesn't come with hip belt pockets. You got to add those yourself, which I'm not even a fan of removable hip belt pouches, but you know, that's, you know, obviously something you could add if you want to. It's a roll top, one big bag. It did not stay dry on the inside. There is not a backpack out there that's going to stay out dry on the inside, especially with the wind and rain that we had. No backpack would have done a good job on that. It was very not wet. It wasn't like
dry as it possibly could have been.
It was dry as it possibly could be. When I opened it up, it was slightly damp. You could just feel sort of a dampness on the inside. Could have been because of humidity, I don't know, but I did have everything in a dry bag on the inside anyway, like I always do. But man, this thing was a massive, massive win. So man, I just feel like I'm just loving all. This is not normal for me to have like all positive reviews on all this gear, because I kind of feel like I should be saying that something was absolutely terrible. And man, I got really lucky on this trip, like trying brand new gear and loving it. So
in awful conditions.
In awful conditions. So man, this. Oh, the only difference between this backpack though and the other ones that I've been wearing, I carried a total. We weighed it for the first time. I haven't weighed my gear in so long. All in food, water, and fuel, I had 26 pounds, 25 and a half pounds actually, in the backpack, and that was about 6 pounds or maybe 7 pounds less than normal, because I'm usually carrying a camera, extra batteries, that kind of thing. So maybe that had something to do with it. But this backpack supposedly carries up to 40 pounds comfortably. I doubt it, honestly. I don't know the backpack out there can do that in this ultralight category, although I haven't tested that. That's just my initial reaction to it. Maybe it can, I don't know. But honestly though, this was an absolute win. Hyperlight, you are getting your run for your money. I mean, how was that trip for you? Was it windy, cold, and were you kind of being a big baby about it?
I was definitely being more of a big baby than I've probably ever been on trips. I have a very low tolerance for rain. I'm just gonna be honest, and I didn't tell him this before because I didn't want to be like, but it was definitely difficult. My gear all did really well though. I stayed pretty dry, and yeah, it was.
You did tell me that you were hating the rain though when it was raining, because I asked you how it was going. You were like, I hate rain. By the way, nice mustache. I do like that mustache.
I do.
Emmett's doing the stash thing. Wonder what I would look like with anyway. All right, thanks, Emmett. All right, here it is. Everything that I used, it was all good. I'm gonna hear about that in the comments. People sometimes complain that I talk about everything and it's so awesome all the time. That's okay. It was awesome. And if you've used any of this stuff and it wasn't awesome, I would love to hear about it in the description below, because I think there's probably very few of you that could say that any of this stuff isn't awesome gear. It was like so much fun to use it. I love using new gear. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. You can find links to all this stuff in the description below, and we'll see you guys on the next one.